Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Kira, and as you can probably hear from my voice, I'm a little bit sick at the moment. I don't know what's in the air at the moment. Obviously a lot of germs, because I feel like everyone in the coloring community is sick at the moment, even though we're in completely different areas of the world. We're all sick, but we're persevering, we're pushing through, because I wanted to get this color along out for you guys. If my voice gets too annoying, please feel free to mute the video and just watch the color along. I will take no offense. Now, as I'm sure you can see from the title of this video, I'm back with another color along. You guys seem to really enjoy the first one that I did, so here we are again. I recently put up a poll on Instagram and YouTube to help decide which coloring book I should feature in this color along, and I gave 3 options. A Million Baby Animals by Lulu Mayo, Worlds of Wonder by Johanna Basford, and Shooting Star by Maria Troll. After adding up the results over both platforms, Worlds of Wonder just won out. However, Shooting Star was such a close second that I decided that will be the next book that I feature in my next color along, the one after this one. So if you want to help me decide what books and pages to do for future color alongs, make sure you're following me on Instagram and keeping an eye on my community tab here on YouTube, because that's where I'll be posting the polls. So yes, as I said, today we'll be working in Worlds of Wonder by Johanna Basford, and I decided to do this page here, the bus page. In this color along, I specifically wanted to focus on showing you how to add your own backgrounds to your coloring pages, because I know it's a very daunting thing, and I thought this was one of the perfect pages to do that in this book, because there is just so much negative space to utilize. When I'm drawing in a background or extra elements on a page, I always try to look at something that's already featured on the page and try to recreate that, or at least an element that is featured somewhere else in the coloring book. This way the page looks a lot more cohesive, because whatever you're adding is already within the style of the illustrator. Luckily enough, there were several elements on this page that I was feeling confident enough to recreate myself. My plan was to add a row that extends to the end of the page, as well as some trees and bushes in the background in the similar style that Johanna Basford had drawn at the top of the bus. Now, when you're adding extra elements to a page, I always recommend using the softest lead pencil that you have, so it's super easy to erase afterwards. I know you can barely see what I'm drawing here, but that's kind of the point. The lighter hand that you use when sketching, the easier it is to erase later on. For the trees, I started by sketching a general triangular shape. This just gives me a rough guideline for the layers that I'm adding later and prevents the tree from looking too wonky or asymmetrical. I know a lot of people aren't super confident when it comes to freehand drawing, and I'm the same. If I have something in front of me that I'm trying to replicate, I'm usually okay, but drawing something from my imagination or like thin air, not as confident. I've actually seen a few YouTube tutorials out there where they show you how to trace items onto your coloring pages but using tracing paper, so I'm thinking I need to give that a go. It might make the process a little bit more easy for me and less scary. Also, another great tool to utilize are stencils. There are definitely some really helpful stencils out there. Karen from My Colorful Country Live uses them a lot, and I know she has some in her Amazon storefront, so check them out if you're looking for some inspiration. When it comes to outlining the elements in ink, I found uni pin pens to be a great option. I've used them a few times in How to Draw Inky Wonderlands by Johanna Basford, and I found that the 0.2mm tip is perfect for matching the thickness of Johanna's outlines, and they don't bleed through the paper, which is of course what we want. I know you can hardly see what I'm doing here because of the angle. I had to hold the pen upright in order for it to work, but basically I'm just outlining the elements that I sketched with my pencil using the ink. Of course, you don't have to outline your elements with ink if you're looking for a more realistic and organic background, but I personally like to outline my added elements just to make sure everything is looking seamless and cohesive on the page. Then if I change my mind later, I could just remove the outlines with acrylic marker. Once I finished outlining, I added a few lines and dots for little extra details to match the details that Johanna had in her trees and bushes. And once that was all done, I could finally start the colouring process. I'll let voiceover Kira take over from here. As I always do in Johanna's books, I began with my budget watercolour pencil set from Officeworks. I doubt many of you own this set, but honestly, any budget watercolour pencil set will work. Just use whatever colours you have that are similar. Colour accuracy isn't important here. You're just putting a wash of colour down onto the page so you can plan where each colour will go and avoid having to work as hard to remove the white tooth from the paper when shading. I didn't make this decision intentionally before basing, but I ended up doing a somewhat limited colour palette. However, I did know from the start that I didn't want the bust to be red. It felt really stereotypical, and I'm someone who prefers not to have red and green as the main elements on my pages unless if it's Christmas related. I don't know why, but that's just some unspoken rule my mind has decided to enforce. I have no issues with others doing it, but for me, green and red only go together if it's Christmas. So since the trees and bushes were going to be varying shades of green, I decided the bust would be blue instead of red. My goal for this colour along is to keep things super beginner friendly. Adding your own elements can be a more advanced technique, so I wanted the rest of the process to feel less intimidating. It's nice to tackle the more daunting parts earlier on, so you can relax and enjoy bringing the rest of the page to life. At this point, I hadn't yet decided whether or not to add a sky background behind the trees, so I left that decision until the end. I wanted to see if the page needed it once everything else was complete. Normally, if I knew I was going to add a sky, I would have done that during the basing stage because backgrounds still feel a little scary to me. I avoided colouring backgrounds at the start of my colouring journey, but I've come a long way since then, though that being said, backgrounds still make my heart race just a little bit faster. I might even have a series in the works for my channel to help me and my viewers improve with backgrounds, but that's all I'll say for now. I should mention that there are a few moments in this colour along where I had to cut out little bits of me colouring because my camera decided to focus on my hand instead of the page, but don't worry, the cutout parts are brief and you'll still easily see what I've done. Also, I decided for this colour along not to film myself colouring every single part of the page. For repetitive elements like the trees, tyres and bushes, I only showed myself colouring one of each, so you can easily replicate the shading and colour combinations for the same elements on the rest of the page. For this colour along, I used the Arrtx 126 pencil set. I tested these out a couple of videos ago on Amazon paper and have only used them in one other book since, which was Enchanted Earth by Melpomene Chattopanagiotou. And oh my goodness, I loved how these pencils blended in that book, but in Worlds of Wonder, they just didn't blend as easily as I thought they would. I do think these pencils work best on slightly smoother paper. Johanna Basford's books are great for pencils like like Prismacolors, which have a soft, buttery core, but the Arrtx pencils are a tiny bit harder. They're not necessarily a hardcore pencil, but I definitely find they're harder than the other brands that I own, so I'll likely save these pencils for other books, like maybe Rita Berman's. I haven't tried them out yet in her books, but I have a feeling they'll work really well, so I'm gonna give that a go next. Speaking of pencils, I wanted to talk about using my Brute Funers for color alongs and tutorials. I know a lot of you have requested for me to use my Brute Funers in these types of videos. However, a subscriber pointed out to me that the numbering system is different for every Brute Funer set, so if you have the 180 set, the numbers won't match the 160 set that I have. In fact, I'm not even sure if my set are legit Brute Funers because they're unbranded on Amazon, but the pencils themselves say Brute Funer on the barrel. Yeah, not sure what's going on there, but my question is, does it matter to you if the numbers are different? Would you still like me to show you how I color with my Brute Funers and then you can find similar colors in your set? Or should I just avoid using them altogether? Let me know in the comments because I just want to do whatever works best for you guys. Okay, I'm gonna leave you to enjoy the rest of the color along without my sick voice yapping in your ear, and I'll be back soon to chat you through the final stages of my coloring process. Alright, as you obviously see, I decided that the page did need a few extra elements for the background. Nothing major, just a couple of extra details to make the final page feel more complete and add a little more context. So I whipped out my watercolor pencils again and added a light wash of grey to the bottom to give the sense of a road. This was super basic and easy to do. And because I didn't want to go through the process of creating an entire sky background, I decided to add just a few soft clouds to give the effect of a bright summery or spring day. This here is another reason I usually try to draw and colour my backgrounds first, as once I've gone to the effort of colouring the foreground, I often can't be bothered to add an elaborate and impressive background. Though I do think the simple background actually really complements this page quite well. There's a lot going on in the foreground and I didn't want the background to detract from it. Am I saying this to justify my laziness? Yeah, probably. I then added lots of little white details with my white Posca paint pen. Remember how I said that it had dried out after only a few uses? Well, somehow it revived itself and I've been using it again on my pages. I still don't think it's the best white paint pen though. I know a lot of us colorists struggle to find a good one, so if you have any holy grails out there, definitely share them down below. After that, I added any extra details I felt got lost during the coloring process, as well as just add some extra dimension and interest. To be honest, I'm not sure if it was a good idea to add little white dots and stars on top of the clouds, but I did it, so I committed to it. I also felt like that I needed to bring in some of the peachy tones from the house onto other elements of the page to just make it more cohesive. So I took a fine tipped brush and used the paint from the 3mm tip Arrtx markers that I have and applied little dots to the bushes to give the effect of tiny roses and flowers once I added acrylic details afterwards. I've done this a few times in Adorable Town by Lainey Dow and I always love how these details turn out. To finish, I used my silver Pentel Hybrid Dual Metallic Gel Pen, oh god, I hate saying that name, to add a little extra sparkle to the sky and to some of the finer details that I couldn't really colour with my pencils, and then voila, I was done. And there you have it, team. My second colour along for the channel is complete. This page is definitely quite different to the first colour along that I did, but I really do find that my colouring style changes and adapts depending on the colouring book that I'm working in. Hopefully this video gave you the confidence to try adding your own backgrounds and elements to your pages. And like I said, make sure to keep an eye on my Instagram stories as well as my community tab here on YouTube, because I'll be putting up a few options for you to choose from for my next colour along, which will be in Shooting Star by Maria Troll. Happy colouring, friends, have a good day, have a good life, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!